I was pushing a squeaky cart past a wall of frosted glass when I heard it clear as a bell in an empty church. Stop! I'm just a cripple. Chairs scraped, a breath caught the kind of silence that means something ugly is happening, and my hand hit the boardroom door before my head could argue. I rolled that mop in like it was a spear saw, Victor Lang leaning over Caleb Rowe with a carbon fiber letter opener pressed where a tie knot should be, saw a dozen suits pretending not to see. And I said calm as asking for the check. Step away from him now. Victor laughed. Who invited the help? Then lunged, and the body remembers what the mind forgets, you know what I mean. I turned his wrist, the toy skittered across the oak like a coin, his guy swung for my ribs and bought himself a floor nap, and I planted my feet between them and the man in the chair and said, "We're done here." Caleb, still steady under the shake, said he could move enough, so we left by the service corridor. Past mission statements, no one reads into an elevator that smelled like lemon cleaner, and last chances, and the doors closed on a room full of money that had just been told no by a janitor. I took him to my ground floor walk-up in South New Harbor. 2 rooms, stubborn stove radiator that sings, and set a bag of frozen peas on his shoulder where the letter opener kissed him, made grits and eggs the way my aunt taught me. So the salt hits first, and the butter sticks around, and we ate in that city quiet that still hums sirens somewhere, pipes clicking a life trying to be normal. He asked who I was, so I told him Ray Hollis, night shift, former Army medic who learned to patch people and get them out alive. And I said, people don't notice the person with the mop, which means we notice everything. He said Victor wouldn't stop. I said men like that don't quit, they escalate. And then I pulled a little drive from my pocket and told him what I mop around every Tuesday. The hallway liability mic outside his door, not a camera, just a microphone with a long memory, and that I had the backup from tonight. We sent it to a reporter a buddy from my unit trusts because truth needs a clean pair of hands. And by sundown, the clip was everywhere, Victor saying, optics and strength like courage is a show, the metallic rasp of that blade. Caleb's breath, my voice landing like a door latch, step away. And the building changed to temperature overnight. Assistants who never looked up said, "Good morning." Security nodded like I'd earned a stripe, and yeah, a note slid under my door at 3 a.m. in block letters telling me I thought I was one of them now. But I folded it once and put it in a drawer because you don't argue with shadows, you flip the lights. 2 days later, Caleb rolled into the janitor's lounge with a folder and a nervous smile, and said it might be a pay cut, at first joke that landed right where it should, and inside was an offer letter with the seal and the weight, and my name on a job I never saw from a mop bucket. Director of People and Ethics, sit in the room not as a symbol, as a soul. And I told him Victor would set me on fire, and he said then we bring water, so I signed with hands that had cleaned blood out of carpet for less than a tank of gas. The emergency board session felt like theater with knives. I wore my thrift store blazer that fits like Hope took the last seat at the long table, opened a borrowed folio, pressed play, and for 3 minutes no one could pretend the air hadn't been full of threat. Motions hit the portal, green lights bloomed. Remove Victor, elevate Ray with full protections, pass the ethics and whistleblower reforms. And the chair where he used to lean his expensive spine went cold. He didn't sulk, he struck, and a leak hit the wires fast. Doctored emails saying Caleb staged his disability for sympathy, and a stock bump, cruel, clever, disgusting. And PR said, go quiet. But I said we go small and honest, no stage, no velvet, no buzzwords, just a wobbly mic in a scuffed room, and a human voice, so I stood up and said my name and my wage, and that a mop handle bites the palm if you wrap your thumb too tight, that I came in through a veteran's side door, and I am not ashamed of 1 second of it, that I will not be erased. Then I stepped aside and let Caleb call ableism what it is, cowardice in a good suit. and it landed like a gavel you feel in your chest. Meanwhile, we swept his office like a crime scene and found a bug tucked under the desk, lips small and polite, listening to everything traced access to a maintenance window that didn't match, and ended up across from Evan Pritchard in a beige room with a vending machine, pretending to be a window. His jaw strong, eyes scared, swearing he could explain modernization and temporary. And I told him, I'm not a cop or a priest, and he slid a pouch across the table anyway. 2 burners, 4 drives labeled A through D, a ledger full of shell companies with clean names that taste like bleach. And when we opened those drives, the picture widened. Not just a coup and unbuilding pensions rerouted through polite fronts. Suppliers set to fail, then bought for pennies. Communities hollowed without a headline. And we sent the paper trail to the feds and the story to the people by streaming a shareholder forum under a banner that said, "Built on truth, not theft," and I cued a clip from a button camera a waiter wore to protect himself. Victor calling the janitor a liability and ordering a ruin. And the room went quiet in that heavy way that means nobody's pretending they're watching TV anymore. The blowback came ugly. Slur on a bathroom wall server's bent to one knee under a DDoS, an anonymous text telling me to stop digging, and then a box with no return address and 2 words typed in courier, dig deeper. And we cracked it on an air-gapped relic like bomb techs cutting the right wire. 5 videos of parking garages and back rooms, 1 audio that smelled like burner phones, a spreadsheet that read like a blueprint to starve a town. And in half the frames was a young woman with posture like someone trying to leave her own body, and I didn't know her name yet. Here's your twist. She walked into our lobby at 2:17 a.m., soaked to the bone hands shaking around a tote, said, "I'm Mila Lang. I'm not here to clean him up and set a drive on my desk," with steady fingers. Said she was the registered name behind Clearview Strategies, because he said it was paperwork. And by the time she understood, she was already drowning. Said, if I handed it to the wrong person, she'd go to prison. And if I handed it to the right one, so would he. And yeah, that happened. And before we could take a clean breath, the safe house we tucked her into blinked off like somebody pinched the wire. Radios jammed, power cut. That kind of quiet, that means hurry. The porch was slick with rain, the front door open a polite inch. The kitchen light humming Mila in a chair with her hands bound, and a split lip. Owen Crest standing behind her, with a knife like a surgeon who reads thrillers, board swing vote, country club, smile now trembling, just enough to give me a rhythm. He said, "Trade." I said, "You brought a knife to a reckoning." Slid my gun onto the floor, because sometimes the only way out is forward. He lunged. The counter met his mouth. The blade skated into the dark. Mila kicked it under the stove like she'd been saving that move since childhood, and when the sirens finally arrived, we were done pretending any of this lived on the 8th floor. Interpol doesn't do edits for our news cycle, but they love clean warrants, so 2 sunrises later we were walking up a gravel drive to a glass villa on a cliff, olive trees and arrogance on the breeze, security, with decent posture and terrible loyalty. And Victor was in a study with too much wood and no tie, swirling a drink, like a man who wants credit for not breaking the glass, telling me myth wins while truth gets bored, circling like he still owned the floor. And I pulled a recorder, pressed play on Mila's voice. He told me to ruin her, not fire her, ruin her, and watched his jaw try to hold its shape when Interpol stepped in, hands rising, smile failing him, whispering he'd never see a day in prison, and me telling him maybe. But he'd never get his myth back, and you could feel the poster of himself curling black behind his eyes. Back home, we did the boring, heroic things people never clap for. Moved pensions to safety, shut down, shells, rebuilt the ladder as stair steps. You can see paid claims we used to argue into dust. fired people who confuse cruelty with leadership, and the building started walking softer like it remembered. The floors listened back, not to punish, to protect. Caleb handed me a velvet box with the original brass key to the first Northbridge office and said, "Keep the door open, and I carry it the way you carry a photograph, heavy true." People still argue about me, about us, about whether going public that hard hurt the company short term, whether Mila deserved a second chance, whether a janitor belongs at the table where numbers meet nerve. Good, let them. That's how you keep a story honest. You keep talking to it. I still take the long way, some nights past the locker with my name in faded Sharpie, past the closet where the hallway mic hums like a little truth machine. I stop and listen. Not for gossip, for the sound of a place deciding what it wants to be. And if you're watching this on a train or a couch or in a kitchen that still smells like breakfast, and you've got a boss who thinks dignity is optional, or you are that boss and forgot you were a person before you were a title, or you're the one who thinks the help should stay in their lane, I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to say, move, make room, do better. Check your myth against your truth, and if it doesn't match, pick up a mop and start cleaning. Now talk to me, drop where you're watching from, and tell me this. Did we do the right thing taking it public, or should we have played it quiet for the stock? Have you seen ableism or class bias dressed up as strategy? Who did you watch get erased, and did anyone step in? Yeah. I'll read as many as I can. Hit subscribe. If you want more stories, told the way they actually feel, messy, funny, bitter, stubbornly hopeful, and if you're in a room tonight where someone smaller is getting cornered, remember you don't need a title to say the one line that changes everything. Move now.